Welcome to the online graduate research forum for spring 2015. My name is Jeff Olson, your presenter. I'm a graduate student in the Masters of Science and Interdisciplinary Studies program in the Department of Occupational, Workforce, and Leadership Studies. The title of my research study is Overtime Tracking, Documentation, and Storage, moving forward at the Austin Police Department. I'm currently a day shift patrol supervisor in the Central West Austin area, where I supervise 10 officers and 1 corporal. Background of my practicum, the purpose. What was I looking to accomplish? The purpose of the practicum was to improve my knowledge and abilities in identifying and addressing department-wide problems so that I can make the organization improve its efficiency while enhancing my own abilities and qualifications. A specific focus was placed on the areas of overtime tracking, documentation, and the procedures to be followed by officers. Organization and location. What organization was I working for and where did I complete most of my work? I've been an employee of the Austin Police Department for over 14 years, and my profession is one of the main reasons for pursuing a master's degree, so completing the practicum experience in my place of work was a natural choice. The department encourages higher education for employees, and they have been nothing but supportive in this entire process. Most of my work was completed at my office location, which is the main police headquarters at 715 East A Street in downtown Austin. Site supervisor, who mentored me during the process. My site supervisor was Rick Randall. He is the founding pastor of Austin Cornerstone Church and is the head of the Austin Police Department Chaplain Program. Part of his duties with the Austin Police Department include training and counseling for department employees. His training has a focus on leadership development, stress management, community policing, and employee improvement, all of which are vital to law enforcement. He holds a bachelor's degree in elementary education, a master's degree in educational administration, and a master's degree in biblical theology. Learning objectives. Learning objective number 1. By the end of the practicum, I will have working knowledge how to evaluate overtime data and documentation based on Austin Police Department policy. Learning objective 2. By the end of the practicum, I will have working knowledge how to conduct research on other police departments to compare their overtime policies with that of the Austin Police Department. Learning objective 3. By the end of the practicum, I will have identified the strengths and weaknesses of the current overtime process to inform management how to best document and track overtime to benefit both the department and the individual officer. Learning objective number 4. By the end of the practicum, I will have working knowledge how to validate new overtime policies, processes, and procedures through appropriate data collecting techniques that include all stakeholders in the organization. Practicum rationale. There are 3 main areas that I feel demonstrate the need for this practicum. The first is liability. Many studies have confirmed that lack of enough sleep impairs decision making, especially during high-stress situations. We justifiably hold our officers to high standards and expect them to take a course of action that is reasonable and defensible. Due to the nature of police work, negative outcomes are bound to happen at times, and if it is discovered that an officer was fatigued due to overtime hours and the agency did not at least have some controls in place, they could easily be on the hook for civil liability. Modernization. For a city that prides itself on being on the cutting edge of technology, there are certain aspects of the police department, at least, which are stuck in the last millennium. For example, we still do paper timesheets, which have extra production and storage costs, not to mention the environmental costs associated with a green city. Our current method for tracking overtime is a jumbled combination of paper and computer-based options, with little consistency. And third, transparency. Both the public and policymakers are best served when law enforcement can be as transparent as possible. The fact is that certain information that we have must and should be kept confidential. However, when we are able to share and provide information, it should be done so in a user-friendly way and in the most expedient manner possible. A better system to sort and store information is good as an internal tool. As a byproduct, information requests from the public will be much easier to locate and disseminate. Some practicum highlights. Over the course of my practicum, there were 3 reflective moments that really stuck out in my mind. Maybe we're actually ahead of the curve. I have to be honest, I went into the practicum experience under the impression that I would find APD to be lacking in how we track and document overtime when compared to other departments. To me, the idea of a more efficient paperless system was a no-brainer. We have sufficient policies and procedures in place to govern how and where we work overtime, but the issue for us was documentation. As a point of reference and to get some ideas, I contacted 3 similar-sized police departments in the state of Texas: San Antonio, El Paso, and Fort Worth. Even though getting through to someone at each department and getting the information was a bit of an adventure in itself, in the end I was able to have my questions answered to make the comparison. What I found is that APD is actually ahead of the curve. In that other departments had various levels of oversight, but none that even matched what our current system does. Unless it is city overtime, El Paso does not have any sort of reporting or oversight requirement. Officers are simply required to log on over the radio for their assignments, and while they have a per week maximum of 25 hours of overtime, if it is not paid by the city, there is no record or requirement to report. Unless a supervisor or other officer notices an issue or performance on duty becomes affected, then officers simply operate under an honor system. As much as I would like to be able to blindly trust my officers, that is just not the proper way to run an agency, and invites a ton of potential problems from minor policy concerns to serious criminal issues. Fort Worth and San Antonio are both found to be a bit better, in that they each have detailed policies and require overtime contracts to be approved through the department prior to being able to be worked. But again, the common denominator is that neither requires specific documentation of hours. Until a negative incident occurs or specific questions are asked, there is nothing but personal ethics keeping the employee in line. Remember, the wheel has already been invented. Upon reflection, I realized that I had initially had some grand plans to reinvent the wheel and gather a large amount of data. My tendency was to add more information than we currently require. However, the fact is, we have been collecting the needed information, just not in a user-friendly format. It was during one of my weekly meetings with my site supervisor where he pointed out that I may have been forgetting the fact that too much information isn't always a good thing. So to ensure that more information wasn't needed, I also met with our Director of Human Resources. He was very supportive of my idea to go to a digital format for entering and storing this information. They didn't have the resources to keep up with their own work, let alone our current paper tracking system. And what he did verify is that the information we currently capture is sufficient. So in other words, keep it simple, stupid. When it comes to relying on technology, hope for the best and plan for the worst. My skills were put to the test due to a couple of major hiccups in the software program that I used. SharePoint is a great tool once you get familiar with it, but that didn't stop Murphy's Law from making an appearance, or two. In week 5, out of the blue, we finally upgraded SharePoint from the 2007 version to 2010. I'd heard this might be coming, but that it wouldn't affect my test website. Well, that wasn't the case. Luckily, everything transferred over, but I had to learn another program on the fly. While the 2010 version proved to be more user-friendly, it was an unexpected delay in my timeline. So what else could go wrong? Well, in week 8, my SharePoint site crashed completely, and I had to scramble to get some form of usable product back together. Both my computer skills and my patience were really put to the test with these two events that had the potential to get me in a serious funk. I definitely would have liked more time to polish the final result and have had more time to run tests. However, I am proud of my ability to stay on track. The somewhat finished product. So data collection. The APD intranet is integrated via SharePoint software. This form would be available at the click of a button from any city computer. So let's take a quick snapshot at the basic information that is gathered via SharePoint. Personnel information. The employee enters their employee number and that of their supervisor. It will then auto-populate the names. There are also required spaces to complete in regards to pay period information, which will ease sorting and storing. Dates worked. A calendar function ensures that the dates are entered in the correct format. Hours worked. They can only enter a range of hours and in increments that are currently acceptable by APD policy. Type worked. There are various types of overtime and extra duty hours that employees work. A drop-down menu provides them with a list of acceptable options for uniformity. And long-term issues. Even though the Practicum experience is complete, my work on the finished product will continue. Once the SharePoint issues are resolved, I will work on implementation citywide. This will require some policy updates that will need to be approved by our policy revision committee and some internal routing and storage decisions where I will need to obtain assistance from our IT professionals. Future career plans. I've identified at least 3 areas where this Practicum experience can be used as possible future stepping stones. Specialized units. I have shown that even as a patrol sergeant, I'm willing to take on new tasks and expand my skill set. This would be a great example of a motivation if I decide to put in for a more specialized unit, especially our police technology unit, which is something that I'm interested in pursuing down the line. Further promotion. This experience is the culmination of my graduate degree. Not only does this look good on my resume when I decide to try and promote again, through our meet and confer contract with the city, it will give me an extra promotional point during the process. And second career options. I do not necessarily have a plan to have a second career when I retire, but this experience has opened up my eyes to some areas that I may be interested in pursuing if these plans change, such as human resources and city management positions. Comments and questions. On the YouTube page below, please indicate your anonymous preference for this practicum by clicking on one of the two icons. Also, please post your comments or questions in the YouTube comment section below. I will respond to your inquiries posted between April 6th and 17th through this webpage. Thank you.